Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Sports Exchange. My name is Scott Morganroth, Motor City Madmouth. Yes, we do this every Wednesday night around 9 o'clock Eastern Time. Great crew on hand. And then again, they're a regular Wednesday crew. Just to give you an idea of what we're going to be talking about, we're going to talk about CBS and the NFL today. A lot on the Stanley Cup Finals, and JB will have a regular segment on his own, as well as the WNBA. With that said, let me go out there and introduce my crew. To the left, okay, because she's a producer and the jack of all trades here and gets to stay in the corner, Candy.
Thank you, Scott. I'm glad to be here.
And Joe Ellis, man, I'll tell you, this guy gets around too in the Windy City.
Yeah, no, doing good. Had a chance to do the Gridiron Greats on Friday. Yeah. A lot of fun.
Yeah,
we'll talk about that later on in the show.
Absolutely. Oh, you said the great minds think alike, talking about later in the show. Good stuff, Ellis. I'm impressed. And last but not least, George Eichhorn, GE, General Electric, George Eichhorn, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, GE, we bring good things to life.
Yeah, you do. And of course, we brought the Sports Exchange to people many years ago, back in the 80s as well. So this show goes on a long, long time. All right, well, let's get to it. A lot to get to tonight. You've got CBS shaking up the NFL today. Boomer Esiason and Phil Simms are out. Matt Ryan's in. George, you know what? We'll start off with you.
Well, Scott, I can't say it's a total surprise. I guess if out of the two, I would say Esiason was the biggest surprise to me. I mean, I always like Boomer. He does these real short commentaries, on a local station that I listen to. And he's always been, to me, A1. I mean, I've always liked Boomer Esiason. Simms, I mean, the guy had his dream job with Jim Nantz, as we all know, back in the play-by-play days and color commentary, and did many Super Bowls, et cetera, et cetera. When they put him on the studio show, I just never got a real good comfort level for his work. And you got so many people. There's so many things going on there, Burleson, and you got so many people talking, and sometimes it gets difficult, to share the microphone, as they say, with everybody going around the horn. And then you got to have something good to say. I mean, you can't say something really either unwise or stupid because everybody's watching you. I'm not totally surprised, like I said, guys, but Boomer Esiason, I would have kept him. Matt Ryan, jury's still out for me, but I he's a good guy. Had a hell of a nice long career, and I hope he does well.
Joe?
So, I mean, unfortunately, Phil Simms and Boomer are from yesterday. I know who they are, but the viewers that watch the NFL right now, it's a young person's game. They want to bring in the younger people. Matt Ryan just left the game, so that's why he's in. It's not that Boomer or Phil did a bad job. They're both phenomenal at what they do. Boomer, great mind. Phil is a great mind. Love both of them, but unfortunately, it's a young person's game. Matt Ryan's the newest face on the block, and they got to compete. So that's why they made the move.
Candy?
The NFL is about, and everything about it is about the almighty dollar. And Joan hit the nail on the head. You want to make sure that you are appealing to all of the audiences, not just the people that have been watching for 20, 30, 40 years. You got to somehow bring in these young generation kids that want to see it, and they can relate to Matt Ryan, just like Joe said. He just retired. He just came out. They all know who he is, who he was. He was a former MVP. They went and got the talent, and and let's face it, they're all doing it. We've seen this over and over. Look at how ESPN has changed and gotten into the younger announcers and everything. We've seen it across the board in all of media.
Okay. Well, here's what we've got here. Number one, CBS was waiting for one thing and one thing only. They were waiting for Matt Ryan to completely retire. Okay, that's what they were waiting for. They didn't know if he was going to be back on the field last year, whether they'd get through him. Once he made the decision, all right, I like this broadcasting thing, right? Okay, I want to go at it full time. Boom, that was the end of the other two. Boomer Esiason, number one, is pretty established in the metropolitan New York area anyways. I think he does a lot of his own stuff to begin with. Phil Simms, it was just time for him to say, hey, had a great run as a quarterback in broadcasting. My son's doing it. take it easy. Who knows? Maybe somebody will find him where he'll do a podcast. But Phil Simms had a good career. Anytime a guy can win a Super Bowl championship and be on the air to talk about it, that's good stuff. But Boomer's all taken care of. Who knows if he was going to scale back a little or not? I don't know. But I do know that he does have shows Metro and the metropolitan New York media market, so he's not going to lose anything. So, but Matt Ryan, you're right. It's all about appealing to the younger generation. And once CBS said he was sound and sealed and delivered, and you know what? That's why I think the change was inevitable. All right, we're going to talk about basketball. Okay, and we're going to talk about the WNBA. The next expansion team is Toronto. The addition of Toronto means the WNBA is up to now 14 teams by 2026, with a new Golden State franchise also gets to play next season. Canada sells out another WNBA game with 1,655 in attendance at Edmonton. By the way, we're going to talk about Edmonton in a little bit. Okay, so I guess the main thing is, Joe, what are your thoughts about the WNBA going to Toronto?
If you're going to expand, now's the time to expand. Everybody's watching because of Caitlin Clark. There's all this controversy. Everyone's watching women's basketball. Strike while the iron's hot. And Toronto is a big city, one of the biggest cities in North America. Why not put a team there? They could support it.
Yeah, one of the prettiest cities as well. Kay and I recently came from. I love Toronto every time I get to go. George?
Yeah, Scott, I think this is a move that will meet with the approval of a lot of fans, the Canadian fans especially. And don't forget, you got the Buffalo audience too there. They just had an article recently, and it said that their first month of this WNBA season drew its highest attendance since the second overall season of the WNBA in 1998. And heck, the television ratings are up. Like you said, JB, I mean, you know, with Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese and all this, rivalry stuff going on and getting great ratings. The women's basketball, of course, and the NCAA had super ratings during their tournament. It doesn't come as any surprise to me. I think you're going to see more expansion, and who knows? I mean, I know that we lost our team in Michigan, but they won one or two titles, I think, the Detroit Shock. But they've been gone for a long time, of course. But it's interesting to see. But no, I agree. I mean, the fire is hot, and I get more cities in there as long as they're legitimate, as long as you got good ownership and the money to support that team. I say I'm all for it, and congratulations to the city of Toronto.
All right, Katie, you and I were there. You give us your impressions of Toronto now that you had your first act back in Canada.
So before I get into Toronto, let me say a little bit about Golden State. So they announced back in October that they were expanding for Golden State. As of April of this year, there were already 5,000 season ticket seats sold already for them. So obviously there is an interest. Obviously we're talking about WNBA. We're talking about Caitlin Clark, like we've all said. Striking while the fire is hot, because right now is when everybody is starting to watch all these teams and watch women's sports. Like I talked last night on Chicks and Salsa how the women's softball championship, George, you had mentioned, congratulations to Oklahoma. They won the 4 straight. Well, they also set a record for viewership as well. 2 million viewers.
Wow.
Game 3. People are watching. They want to see this kind of stuff. So I think, like Joe said, strike while the fire's hot, expand. As long as you have quality players and that want to play, and you have enough teams, you have the facilities, the fans will be there. Toronto, we went to Toronto this year, and this is the first time I had been that I stayed in Canada. I had been over the border just once briefly with you, Scott, earlier. But Toronto is a big city, and it just amazes me how compact it is. And when I say compact, that means they build up and down. Like when I say we stayed in a hotel of sorts, it was condominiums basically, but our parking was 4 levels down below the ground, 4 levels. So they build up and down, so they're compact, so people walk to things. And because of that, are they going to support this? Yes, because they can get to it. It's not like you're going to be driving 2 hours to go to a game. You have lots of people in, that can walk, that are short. That I think there's that I don't know what the exact per capita people are in Toronto, but if you ask me, I'm guessing it's pretty high because, like I said, they build up so they could have 20 floors of apartments, 30 floors of apartments. There's a lot of people in that small community, and they're going to support it. Just like they supported the Maple Leafs, they support the Raptors, they support the Blue Jays, all of them.
Yeah, Mr. Lawyer says hello, Mr. Lawyer. Thanks for being on tonight. And don't forget the old Toronto Argonauts of the Canadian Football League.
Yeah.
Can't forget about them either. And I think they've got soccer there. So Toronto's a great sports town, and I've been there quite a few times. I just love the area. And thankfully, on a recent trip there, we did have a chance to check out Maple Leaf Gardens when we were there. Candy's never seen it. It's one of those where I was forgiven by the man upstairs. I didn't have a camera back in 1982 when I turned 20 and spent my birthday watching the Maple Leafs and the Canadians. But boy, we went back there today. I had Candy taking the pictures of me inside the revamped garden, which is now being used for the college in there. And it was just neat just to see all the history in that incredible town. I went to the old Hockey Hall of Fame many years ago when it was that exhibition place. I know that they've actually built it in the city, but regardless, yeah, I think it's a no-brainer. I think it's a no-brainer that they had to put a WNBA team in Toronto, and with all the star power that you're starting to see there, you know what? That's going to be an excellent franchise. And Buffalo hasn't had any professional basketball, I think, since the Buffalo Braves.
Right.
Yeah. So now they have the Raptors if they want to go across the border, and now they have an incredible WNBA team. All right, well, we'll go from the WNBA to the NBA, okay? And that's it. So going into the NBA playoffs, the Boston Celtics had the most playoff wins in the past 5 seasons with 41. Now, no NBA titles to show for it. Will this be the year that they're going to finally break through? I know they currently have a 2-0 lead over the Dallas Mavericks. So, you know what? Candy, what do you think?
I would have said the Celtics were going to take it real, all the way. And I still think they are, but I think I'm surprised by how many injuries we've seen.
Right.
And, with Porzingis going down and Luka now he's getting shots in his chest for his chest contusion. I still think the Celtics are going to take it this year, but I'm just real surprised by all the injuries. And it's not just NBA. It's overall the sports.
Joe?
Yeah, I mean, Game 3 is always the game that sets the tone of a series. The Celtics held home court. Porzingis isn't playing, which, is a hurt to them. But I think that the Celtics end up winning in 5. I think they're the better team. Dallas had a great run. Luka's one of the best players in the game, if not the best player. Kyrie does a great job working with him. And, when it's all said and done, that Boston Celtic roster is really good. I don't see Dallas having a chance to beat them.
George?
Yeah, and for those wanting a score, Dallas is up right now 44-40 in Game 3. And the interesting thing is that Boston, yes, they're loaded. Of course, Tatum leads them with 18 points right now, but they have nobody else in double figures right now. So this game is obviously going to be a close one. I agree with you guys. I mean, the Celtics have been loaded. And Scott, you read off the statistics all these years, 5 years. I mean, they've been so good. Well, a lot of regular season good, I should say, but not in the playoffs and not in the finals. But
Right.
I think there's no question in my mind that they're going to win this series and take a championship and hang it from the rafters. But 64-18 the regular season, unbelievable. Great team, good coaching staff, and I don't see Dallas possibly winning more than one game here.
Well, Dallas has been a good story all year when you think of what the job that Jason Kidd has done. It's unbelievable. And I'm actually happy that Kyrie Irving is playing basketball and not overshadowing his image with drama. So he seems to have found Jason Kidd's done a marvelous job with him and Luka Doncic. But the one stat I'm going to put out there is this. All-time titles, okay, the Lakers and the Celtics stand at 17 apiece. And don't think in a million years that the Celtics wouldn't like to be 18 and 17, while the Lakers are in turmoil with their coaching search. And they were recently turned down by Danny Hurley looking for a three-peat over with the Connecticut Huskies. So, yeah, I think the Dallas Mavericks have a great future with the nucleus that they have. You have a happy Kyrie Irving and a guy like Luka Doncic, and they have some other good players on that team. So, they obviously have a good general manager there under new ownership. So, but yeah, I think what means more to Boston is the fact that when they are able to close this thing out, and I do believe that they will, it'll be 18-17 over the Lakers in the championship department. But that said, Katie, go ahead.
One quick thing. Let's all wish it's Jrueholiday's birthday. So happy birthday to Jrueholiday. He's really lit it up in defense and really helping Boston. So, yeah, happy birthday, Drew.
Happy birthday.
I think he's the MVP of the finals right now.
Oh, do you really? Yeah. Yeah, well, let me tell you something. Candy obviously had a little bit of loyalty because Holiday helped the Bucks win a championship. Anything else you want to go ahead and add to it, Candy, before you take a station break?
Nope, that's all.
Okay, it's station break time. Go ahead.
Station break time. This show is sponsored tonight by South Florida Tribune Publishing Company. We published a book late last year. It's called Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Madmouth, wrote this book, and George wrote the foreword. There are couple awesome pictures in there, but a lot of awesome stories. You got to go out and get it. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Apple, Google Books, and we are working on the audio version. If you want to go to our website, go to www.southfloridatribune.com. You can see the writings of all Scott, George, and JB. You can see my pictures, and you can also we have a store on there. So if you want any South Florida Tribune or Motor City Madmouth paraphernalia, go to our site and go buy some kind of sweatshirt, koozie, umbrella, you name it, it's out there. Go get one for yourself. If you see that red subscribe button by George, that means you have not subscribed to our channel yet. Please do so. Share us with all your friends. If you enjoy listening to podcasts, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. iHeartRadio, Google, Apple, Spotify, you name it, we're there. If you want to sponsor a show, call Scott, 954-304-4941. Back to you, Scott.
Well done, Candy. So, like I tell a lot of people right now, that the more subscribers we get, I'm working on great quality material. And I had a show prior to this on No Filter Network with a woman by the name of Deb Whitcatz. You want to talk about one of the most dynamic people I've ever interviewed. She is. We talked about women in sports. So, that will also be on our YouTube channel in the next day or so. Candy, make sure to get up there. But what was interesting about that show is I wanted to give young ladies who are breaking into the industry what it was like to go out there and do it. And hopefully this will help. If, our goal here is whether we're on a show like this or anything like that, if we can impact one person or even more, we feel we've done our job, because the biggest part about journalism is you want to educate, but you want to entertain, and we do the best we can. And we pride ourselves having the most experienced people out there, like Joe Ellis, myself, George Eichhorn, and the list goes on with the people that we bring on. So for those of you that are watching tonight, we're really happy to have you, and please spread the word. All right, well, we're going to stay out in Canada, okay? And the last Canadian team to win the Stanley Cup was the Montreal Canadiens in 1993. No problem. But here's an interesting one. Ready? The last American team to win the Grey Cup. Yes, everybody. The Grey Cup back in Canada. Yes. It's the Baltimore Stallions. My goodness. Okay. and that was in 1995. Can you imagine that? And yet, believe it or not, the Birmingham Stallions are playing in the UFL championship. No related. Although, good luck to Wade Phillips. I hope you have a chance to win a championship at 76. Since this is your first opportunity after 55 years of coaching to be able to roam the sidelines by yourself as a head coach. Staying on topic, though. Can you believe that, Joe? It's been 1993 since the Canadian team won. And
It's insane.
yeah, isn't it? And what about the Baltimore Stallions? Seriously, if you don't know them, Google them up. We're way ahead of the game here. Unbelievable,
It's
Joe.
just wild.
Isn't it? What's
Yeah.
wild about it?
It's 30 years. I mean, all the teams in Canada that have been good since then, not one has, hoisted the cup. I mean, Toronto year after year is always a good team. Vancouver's been good. Edmonton the last few years has been good. Calgary's been good. Winnipeg. I mean, I could go on, and just none of them are able to get it done.
Yeah,
it's wild.
Yeah, it really does seem pretty surreal, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I tell you what, and living across the river from Canada, they are some of the best fans anywhere, and we know it. And we talked earlier about your trip to Toronto, but I had a chance to see a Toronto game once at Air Canada Center, and oh my gosh, what an experience. It was a regular season game. I was in town for a conference for a company I used to work for, and lo and behold, I lucked out and the Maple Leafs were home. So I was able to go there as a fan, and just a great, great experience. You got one on me, though, Scott. I've never been to Maple Leaf Gardens, but I'm sure going to try to go there sometime, because talk about history. And you talk about history, Montreal Canadiens, and like JB said, all these teams, Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton, solid teams, solid performers, but somehow they just can't get it done. And this is the hotbed of hockey. We all know. I mean, Canada was number one for hockey until our guys came around, and cities like New York, of course, Boston, Chicago, Detroit, the original six and everything. But that's an incredible black eye, and especially on the Maple Leafs.
Right.
They are there's something about them that's just preventing them for breaking that jinx from the 1960s, the last time they won the Stanley Cup. I mean, that was sort of like the Cubs, and the Cubs couldn't win, until they finally broke that streak. So, I mean, I'm thinking about a team that's been waiting. Oh, well, yeah, there's another team in the NFL. We know all about them. I won't mention who, but that's never been to a Super Bowl. But the fact of the matter is Canada loves hockey. They live hockey. They eat it. They breathe it. And, I'm still pulling for Edmonton. I don't know. I don't think they got enough to do it, though. Florida's on a roll.
George, I've never seen a guy do a Texas two-step better than you when it comes to dodging a team. Really? Seriously, Icorn? You might as well just say Detroit Lions because you did everything but say it. Seriously? All right, come on. Seriously. Although you're from Metro Detroit, to me right now, Metro Detroit for me is about what hotels I'm staying in. But let's get out with the number. 1967, even a year before Candy was born. Well, she was born in the right year, 1968, when the Tigers won it all. I put all these dates into perspective, guys. With all due respect, hockey's developed in the United States. You got a lot more American teams. You have a lot more expansion on parity. It's making things very difficult for those north of the border. I remember when we were growing up, we had the Summit Series. We had the first series in 1972, the United States Canada against the Soviet Union. I mean, that's unbelievable. But yeah, it's been a long time, 1967. So, and I'm not too optimistic that drought's going to end. We'll get to that in a moment. Some thoughts, Candy.
The 93 Montreal Canadiens remain the last team from Canada to hoist the cup. True that. That capped a 10-year run with 8 Canadian champions, including the Oilers, winning it 5 times from 1984 to 90. The drought, we do not need to end that drought. We need to end the drought for the Florida Panthers because they have not yet won it as a team. So Oilers later. We don't need to change this drought this year. The Panthers, they're playing really tough. And if you've watched the games, they are shooting way more than the Oilers are. The Oilers only have one goal in the 2 games. It's really gonna come down to, I feel, the goalies. So the Sergei Bobrovsky, who they started writing off for a couple years ago, that he was on the downcline, that he wasn't going to amount to much. They're going to live and die by him. Panthers
Let me tell
take
you.
it.
Yeah, well, the only thing that the Edmonton Oilers are missing right now is a goaltender that resides in New York named Igor Shesterkin, because he's the only reason that the Rangers stayed in that series when he did anyways. I mean, let's face it, really. I've mentioned this on other shows, and I'll reiterate what I said again. A team that loses in the finals one year comes back with an edge. And they really come back with an edge when the Panthers were beaten by the Golden Knights a year ago, 4-1. Vegas got their first championship. So Florida's been playing with a chip on their shoulder the entire time, and now it's inevitable. The only thing I say about Florida is they're a juggernaut right now. This team here is poised and determined to win it. They're up 2-0 anyways in the series. Game 3 is tomorrow night in Edmonton. But when you put it all in perspective, Bobrovsky, they signed him to a big contract. Now he's finally living up to the money that they paid him. And, of course, they have franchise players like Matt Tkachuk, Alexander Barkov, Eric Ekblad. The list goes on and on. So, yeah, I think the Panthers are poised to be able to pull it out, and I don't see any reason to think that they won't. But if Edmonton doesn't win tomorrow, then I think it's about cashing in your chips, and the Panthers are no longer going to be in the nil category. And no, I'm not speaking about former Red Wings assistant general manager Jim Nill. I'm talking about nil as in the word 0. I had to throw it in. Probably a bad joke, although he did end up winning Executive of the Year award. So, yeah, I think the Panthers certainly are looking awfully good. And, someone's going to give. Either Connor McDavid's going to win his first, or there'll be a bunch of players on the Panthers that are going to win their first. So it'll be good to see which ones get championship rings for sure. So, all right, well, we'll continue on this narrative here. The Oilers and the Florida Panthers series is the farthest distance between two cities in NHL history per ESPN stats and information, at 2,541 miles from Edmonton to Sunrise. You know what? And I was doing a little research on this whole thing. By car, you're talking 44 hours. Now, if I were going to sit here and tell you 2 weeks ago, I couldn't even drive 4 hours, let alone 40. I could do it because I got these stylistic glasses that are actually Deb Weekast told me when we were on our show earlier. Those are pretty good stylistic glasses. And Candy liked them and everybody else there. But here's the deal, okay? When you're able to drive a lot of miles, it's one thing, but I'll tell you, I don't know if I like the 2-2-1-1-1 setup when you have this amount of mileage separating them. But it is unbelievable the amount of travel that you have to go from one venue to the other. You're talking Edmonton to Sunrise. And the Panthers are about ready to put the sunset on the Oilers. So, Candy, what are your thoughts about this distance?
It's tough because, to be honest with you, I can tell you the Panthers, they're saying it's about a 6-hour flight, 6 to 7 hour flight in the air. I can tell you because of all the rain that we have had here in Florida, the Panthers got off to a late start. They were delayed approximately 3.5 hours today, and they were hoping to leave around 4:30 p.m. Now, if you're talking about a 6 hours flight, you're not getting in until 10:30, 11 p.m. That, to me, seems late, considering you're going to play less than 24 hours later. They said that on the flight, they're all playing Xbox games or relaxing and stuff like that. The other thing is we do not know the status of Alexander Barkov because he took a high hit and came out of the game with like 9-10 minutes left in the game the other night. He did skate today on the ice for the Panthers and had a good practice, but they said that they won't know his status until after they land to see how he's feeling after they land. But that could be a significant blow to the Panthers because he was one of their captains and one of the strong, aggressors too. So I'm hoping he'll be able to play, but we'll see. But that, I think with the 2-2 and then 1-1-1, that's a lot of traveling, knowing the distance.
Yeah, no question about it. I mean, I understand why they're doing it, but I don't necessarily agree with the decision. Joe, what are your thoughts about it?
Yeah, I mean, they're professionals. They play the game if it was in Antarctica. They don't care.
Right.
They both teams want to win. Both teams will be ready to play. I think Florida is going to win the series. They've played better the first couple of games. Got to be careful. Edmonton's a flashy, quick team, but if Florida keeps playing like they're playing, there's nothing that's going to stop them.
Yeah, they're a buzzsaw right now, the Panthers. There's no question about it. So, I mean, what they need to do is, should they win this championship, they just have to find a way to keep as much of their roster intact. But it's hard to do in the salary cap era because I'll tell you, every raise and there's only so much money to go around. All right, George.
Well, the situation with the time is just incredible, and the distance involved. And I saw that story, Candy, that you just talked about. And, the league gave them an extra day between games and able to fly that distance. And yet I have no idea why Florida waited that long. I mean, I know you want to stay and let the players, sleep in their own bed, as they say, their own home. But, boy, that's taking it a step a little bit too far. Especially, they didn't know that they're going to be delayed 3.5 hours because of all the rain you guys have been getting in Florida. So if there's a little bit of glimmer of hope for Edmonton, I guess I'm saying that might be the chance that they could seize one of the games, which would be tomorrow night's game. But the fact is that, Florida is loaded. They're too talented, and they play as a good unit. They're firing shots left and right. Their defense is solid, goaltending. I mean, they got a hell of a roster. And like you said, Scott, that revenge factor of going there, we didn't win it last year, guys. Damn it, let's do it now. Let's get it done. And all indications are that motivation is right there for the Panthers and their fans and followers.
Yeah, I mean, they're really a poise-hungry club. I mean, it's pretty hard to go ahead and beat a team that's lost the year before that knows what it's like to get there. They just have to finish the job. And that's a credit to Paul Maurice, too. I mean, he's a heck of a coach. They've had some pretty good coaches as of late. Joel Quenneville, Andrew Brunette, who I thought was going to get the job, but they opted to go veteran. Andrew Brunette landed with the Nashville Predators anyway. So either way, I mean, but yeah, I'm a little surprised at the way they handled the travel part. All right, well, let's stay on the theme here. The Edmonton Oilers did go ahead and start the year 2-9-1. They fired their head coach. They were tied with the fewest points in the NHL on November 9th. Enter Chris Knoblauch, who leads the Oilers to the finals, their first finals, I believe, since 2006. Okay, Candy, what are your thoughts about a early coaching change, in this case, particularly paid off?
Well, I can say it necessarily didn't pay off that well for the Bucks. They did the same thing. They quickly moved on. Whatever it takes. I mean, in today's day and age, and NHL is no different. You're held as a coach. You are held accountable for how your team performs, and not only how it performs, but if it wins. And it with every different sport there is. They're held more accountable, I think, these days than ever, because you want to make money, you want to have viewership, you win. And so kudos to the coach that took over. I can tell you one last stat. Out of 54 attempts of teams that go down 0-2, only 5 have won the Stanley Cup after going down 0-2. So they're fighting an uphill battle. I personally don't think they're going to win it, but kudos to firing your coach and still getting and the new coach getting them to the finals. And that's a testament to him and the team rallying around him.
Chris Knoblauch has done a great job. The guy's only 45 years old. He's a coach that you can build around for a lot of years for sure. Joe, obviously, about coaching changes midseason. This one worked out for these Oilers.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You know, the Oilers were a very talented team, starting out 2-9-1. Something obviously wasn't right.
Right.
You know, he came in, the ship got righted, and look where they are now. You know, I can't really say much more than that. It worked out well. It doesn't always happen. Look at the Bucks. You know, they went to Doc and they went home. You know.
And by the way, speaking of the Bucks, they did sign Darvin Ham as their new as an assistant. He goes back to Milwaukee. I'm happy for Darvin Ham. That situation with the Lakers was so dysfunctional, it was ridiculous. But Darvin will, let me tell you, Doc Rivers will definitely appreciate his presence. All right, well, and this segment with George.
Yeah. You know, Ken Holland obviously pulled the trigger on that coaching change. And you're right, Scott. It really woke the franchise up. It put them all on notice. Everybody on the team, every head coach, assistant coach, and anybody connected with the Oilers were all put on notice. And it turned out great. I mean, you know, Holland did that once here in Detroit. He had to fire Dave Lewis. Dave Lewis was very well liked by the Red Wings and the players. Sometimes you got to make those tough decisions. And this one surely worked out good. And like you said, Scott, he's such a young man. I mean, he's got many, many years ahead of him. Hopefully for their sake, I mean, successful years. But, you know, he plucked him out of the job he was in. I don't know, was he in the minors or was he assistant coach? I didn't look it up, but
no, not relevant. The fact is they made a coaching change early and
exactly. He made the right move at the time, and you gamble on something like that. But my God, they finished only 5 points behind Vancouver in that division. So they've had a hell of a run, the Oilers. They really have.
Okay, well, you know what? Joe Ellis resides in the Windy City. So you know what, Joe? You're on your own with this one. But I'm going to lay it out there for you, okay? Number one, in the last 40 games, the Chicago White Sox are 11-29, although they've been a train wreck all year anyways. But the Chicago Cubs are the interesting story, that they've been 15-25, and they're tied with the New York Mets. What gives in the Windy City, Joe?
Well, the White Sox are just a dumpster of trash right now. I don't know what's going on with them. A lot of injuries. A lot of guys just aren't playing well. You know, their pitching is horrible. They can't hold leads. The Cubs, they're completely different. They can't hit anymore. You know, the lineup that was producing in April stopped producing in May and the beginning of June. The bullpen hasn't done anything, you know, all season except blow games. They blew another game last night, almost blew the game tonight. They won 4-3. Runners, they were up 4-1 going into the last inning. And, you know, gave up a couple of runs, won 4-3, and they had runners at second and third, and almost took Tampa Bay almost came back and won that game. Their starters have been the bright spot of the team. They've had 17 games where the starters not allowed to run, you know, which is phenomenal. That's the most in the majors. But at the same time, the bullpen and a lack of hitting.
All right, so obviously, Joe, and I don't mind doing a little bit of cross-promoting, okay? So we're going to do it in this case. You have a show called Confidential. Why don't you let the audience know what Confidential is all about? I know you've designated a show, and obviously you have a good following with it. But let everybody know when Confidential can be seen and where it is, you know, and what it actually brings. Because obviously we know that Chicago Cubs have been one of the most popular franchises for many years, despite their big drought.
So Confidential is a weekly magazine style show. We go over the last week of Cubs games. We have a bunch of different segments. You know, Hot Cub Time Machine, where we'll look back in the past and pick out a great event. This Cubs for you. You know, whoever's the best Cub of the week.
Right.
Cub or Dud, which is our poll question that we'll ask our panelists. And you can watch every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Central on Sideline Sports.
Or 8 Eastern time. Not everybody's in Central time, Mr. Ellis, except when you're taking your
time.
I got no problem changing time zones. I lived on the West Coast, and I really enjoyed changing time. So you get to watch NFL games earlier. But I'm happy on the East Coast in South Florida. I have no complaints about it. So, yeah, but, you know, again, you have Craig Counsell there. I mean, what did they expect out of him in his first year? The one thing I can tell you right now is he wasn't able to take any of his coaches. All of them stayed with Pat Murphy in Milwaukee.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's Counsell. I think it's the bullpen, you know, and the lack of hitting. guys they're not hitting. They get guys in scoring position and nobody moves them over, nobody gets them in. And the bullpen has been atrocious. You can't have starters that go out there and give you quality start after quality start, and the bullpen go and blow every single game. It just doesn't work. You're not going to go anywhere with that. Luckily for them, there's not a lot of good teams in baseball this year. They're still in a fight for that third wild card, and thankfully, because there's just not a lot of good teams.
All right, my final question about the Cubs, Joe. Do you think they're going to be buyers and sellers at the trade deadline?
Right now, I think where they sit, that they'll be buyers, but that could change if they go on a losing streak and find themselves out of contention. You see, the one thing that the Cubs have, they have a great farm system, so they can make trades, but they also have a lot of guys on their major league roster that other teams will be looking for. So they can have the best of both worlds. They could sell if the team tanks, and if they're doing well, they have the pieces to get other players in. So it's just a matter of where they are when we get closer to the deadline. Right now, I think they'd be buyers, but still got a long way to go to that July deadline.
Okay, well, that gives so all you Cubs fans out there, Joe says there's hope for the Cubs. White Sox, well, unfortunately they've had a tough year. Although I have to tell you, their former announcer Jason Benetti goes to Detroit. Now I'm giving you the Detroit reference. Don't say a word. Don't say a word. Okay. I was fortunate to have an opportunity to talk to Jason for a few minutes, get a photo when I was there covering the Marlins and the Tigers. But Jason got out of there before it got really, really rough on the south side. All right. One other unfortunate note, we have to look at both sides. His legendary NBA icon, Jerry West, today died in his sleep at the age of 86. Unfortunately, never had a chance to meet him on the West Coast. Okay. But when you have a guy where the logo is practically made from his cutout, it's a big loss. And unfortunately, the NBA in the last few weeks have lost Bill Walton and Jerry West. So, Jerry, 86 years of age, you won one championship as a player. Of course, when you're losing to the Celtics, everybody gets you a pass, and you won another as an executive, 8 of them to get to 9. So, Jerry, rest in peace. The NBA is better with you than they are without you. And that's just a sad part about life. You live, and then ultimately the shelf life goes away. So, Joe, some thoughts about Jerry West.
Listen, he was an icon. He lived a long life. There's, it's the way it should be. You live to your mid 80s. You experience the top of your profession. He was one of the best in the game, and it seems like he went peaceful, which is always a good thing.
Yeah, sure does. I mean, you think about it. He ended up working in an administration for the Memphis Grizzlies, Golden State Warriors, and the LA Clippers. So, of course, we know about his 4 years with the Lakers. George, some thoughts about Jerry West.
Yeah, I mean, what a great ball player. I mean, I'm old enough to remember when he was in the last year or two of his playing career, and what a great man. Just always serious. He knew the sport so well. I mean, you had John Wooden out there, you had Jerry West out there, you had Will Chamberlain. You had these great guys and coaches and executives he became, and I've always admired him. He has been somebody that people have looked up to and had respect for so many times. I mean, every time the NBA did a special salute, like a 50-year anniversary or 60, whatever, 70 years. I mean, Jerry was always there, always happy to help out. And I know things didn't work out at the end with he and the Lakers, but like you said, Scott, he got some other jobs and well-deserved jobs too with the Clippers and Memphis. And, he was just pure joy to watch. His shot, his rebounding skills, and of course, being a great guard. He played his position so very well. So I echo your sentiments, everybody here. Rest in peace.
Well, when you think about how good he really was, okay, here's a guy that won a Finals MVP on the losing end of it.
Yeah.
What does that tell you? All right, Candy,
Yeah.
I know you've researched Jerry West a little bit. Do you have any thoughts on it?
So he led West Virginia University, where he is still the all-time leader in scoring average to the NCAA final in 1959. He also is, what is he? I thought I read he's 25th on the NBA's all-time scoring list. He also was given, let me just get back to it. In 2019, he was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the nation's highest civilian honor. He has been a basketball icon for many, many years. You know, what can I say? He personified what basketball is all about. Like, he was Mr. Basketball. He played on the different levels. He coached on different levels. He'd been on the Olympics. He's actually he was in the Hall of Fame as a player back in 1980. He was enshrined as a coach, I believe, and then he will be enshrined for the third time later this year as a contributor. And NBA Commissioner Adam Silver called West one of the greatest executives in sports history. Not basketball history, in sports history.
No doubt about that. All right, going back to Joe Ellis real quickly. He had an opportunity Friday night to go to Gridiron Greats. Go into more detail about the night and the event.
So first of all, Gridiron Greats is a charity created by Mike Ditka to help former NFL players back in the day where, a lot of these guys don't get the pensions like they get now for current NFL players. They have the health care that they have now. And a lot of them were hurting. And they also do a lot of great work for veterans organizations as well. So Ditka created this organization. So they have their Hall of Fame induction ceremony. They had it up in the Regency, the Hyatt Regency O'Hare on Friday night. And I had the honor to host the red carpet for them. I got to interview their honorees that night, which were Steve Largent, Mike Singletary, Deborah Little, Vince Papali, the guy from Invincible, as well as, a bunch of other celebrities that were there. JT and the Brick from Sirius, Mike Golick, just to name a few. And, it was just a really great event where they raised a lot of money to give back to help the former players that are in need and the veterans groups that they help that are in need.
I think the most interesting part about your event, though, Joe, I have to admit, okay, seeing you on Facebook wearing his coat and tie, my God, seriously,
sometimes you gotta dress the part.
I know, man, but I don't know red carpets. I wore that attire before. Doesn't mean I gotta like it. And long before Candy came into the picture, I used to get clip-on ties.
Oh,
that's just me.
I hated it, but you got to.
But you look good. I'm trying to compliment you. You did. Don't ever act stupid when somebody like me is complimenting you. You look great.
Thank you.
Now, I have to make a confession that you didn't know last night, but Icorn, I think, heard it, or Candy, on one of my shows. I didn't even know what a meme was. I didn't even know what a meme. Everybody, and even Deb, who I had on here, Deb Whitcast, and I were smiling at a ball. In fact, she just texted me on Instagram and wants a link of the show that we just did. Deb, I didn't know what a meme was, but I know what FCC is. Ellis looked great in a shirt and tie. That's on busting his job. Most people get out of me these days is a regular shirt. Of course, Candy, she demands it. She knows how to tie the old thing with jobber. It doesn't happen a lot, but every now and then when it happens, it's an event. So, but meanwhile, Joe, I'm glad you had a chance to meet those people. That just shows the respect that you're gaining in this industry to be given such responsibility to come in contact with them. I got to get somehow, some way, by hook or by crook, I got to meet up with Mike Golick. He's only 2 weeks older than I am. He's a Kennedy baby like I am. So at some point I'm going to catch up with Golick. So, and he was actually born in Willowick, Ohio, just to show you about I actually lived on Willowick Drive in Southfield, Michigan.
Wow.
Yeah. That's called research, Mr. Ellison. It's in an encyclopedia at the library. I like to research. Okay. Babies like to say goo goo gaga or gaga goo goo, however it is. I like to say Google. So there you go. All right. Well, had to throw it in. Don't worry, I was worse. Here, I got to throw everybody one more thing with Jobber. I hit Deb with it, and everybody else. Now, I have a different kind of a religion. So if I have any religious people out there, please don't be upset. Okay. But here's my religion. Okay. We all know about AC is after Christ and BC is before Christ. Okay. We get that. I firmly believe in it. Okay. But I have a different version of that caters everything custom made to the person. AC to me is after caffeine and BC is before caffeine. And that's what keeps the gravy train and energy going. So actually, yeah, Deb actually was asking me, what kind of stuff do you go out there and drink? It's a Diet Mountain Dew. And then that isn't good when you're in the Carolinas, you get sun drop, and Diet Coke is the least potent of the group. And of course, that doesn't count the Red Bulls I've had in the monster drink. So, but anyway, for all you folks that are watching on YouTube, thank you very much for tuning in tonight. So with that said, okay, George, let everybody know how they can get a hold of you.
All righty. My contributions are on the South Florida Tribune under the Motor City Tribune banner. And there you'll find a link at the end of my columns to a book I wrote many years back, Detroit Sports Broadcasters on the Air. It's still available on Amazon. And you could get a copy of that book if you're interested. Scott's in the book. I'm in the book. But the important people are in that book, too, like Van Patrick, George Blaha, Frank Beckman, Ernie Harwell, all these great announcers we had. Oh, yeah, Scott's got a copy of the book. He's right in his corner picture there. You can reach me on LinkedIn under my name, George Eichhorn. You could send me an email message, geichhorn@yahoo.com. And, of course, I'm available for anything you want to talk about in sports. Proud friend of Scott for over 40 years covering sports, and enjoy the shows that I'm on, the Sports Exchange, and especially the 108 Stitches on Mondays. So thank you again.
You're very welcome. All right, Joe. You know, obviously, for those people that are looking at the bottom of our screen, you know, they can see Sideline Sports on the website, but you get to do the verbal version of it and everything else.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Go to sidelinesportsnet.com. You can find all the Sideline Sports shows, including Sideline Sports. The website's phenomenal. Candy built it. Done a great job. You can find me at JB_the program on X. You're welcome, Candy. Sideline Sports is on every Tuesday at 8:30 Eastern, and Confidential before this show, 7 or 8 p.m. Eastern on Wednesdays.
All right, that leaves it up to Candy to take us home.
Well, first and foremost, before I go into all of our stuff, I have to say happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. This Sunday is Father's Day. I will be missing my dad. My dad is up in heaven, but happy Father's Day to all of the fathers that are out there. George, I know you're a dad, and so happy Father's Day to you, and happy Father's Day to Scott's dad, Mr. Morganroth. Whether he catches this show or not, we wish him a very happy Father's Day.
Mother's Day. Well, he probably has to occupy both roles these days.
Well, and I was going to say, and for the moms that occupy those roles, happy Father's Day as well. Joe, I'm not sure if happy Father's Day to your dad.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
And Deb's dad as well, too.
Thank you.
Of course. Where would we be without our fathers, right?
Very true.
But exactly. So, but if you're seeing that red subscribe button, hit it, like us, share us, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check out all of our different shows. Monday nights, we talk baseball. Tuesday nights, we talk football. Wednesday nights, we talk, you never know what sport we're going to be talking here on Sports Exchange. And go over to nofilter.net and see Scott's one-on-one Motor City Mad Mouth show where he interviews people one-on-one. It normally is at 8 o'clock on Wednesday nights. It could change, but right now, Wednesday nights, he's talked to Melfar Jr., Coach Bono, Jack Perconti, and then tonight was Deb Whitkus. Go check out nofilter.net. Thursday nights, we normally do Fire Up. Watch for more details about that show because that's getting a little revamping as well. Go to our website, www.southfloridatribune.com, where all three of the guys here have written for us, and I take pictures. So go see our pictures. My pictures, I should say. Let's see. If you enjoy listening to podcasts, all of our shows are available audio version on iHeartRadio, Apple, Google, Spotify, Twitter at Tribune South. If you want to email us any show ideas, southfloridatribune@gmail.com. If you would like to sponsor a show, call Scott 954-304-4941. If you missed any of this, it's been scrolling on the bottom throughout the program. Go back and watch it and get the information you need. This show was sponsored tonight by South Florida Tribune Broadcast or Publishing Network, which published a book back in November that Scott wrote, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. George wrote the foreword, and it talks about Scott's 44 plus years in the media business and how the media industry has changed. You know, he talks a lot on this show. He tells all kinds of stories in the book. So go get it on Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Kindle, Google Books, or Apple Books. Audio version becoming later. And if you want any merchandise of South Florida Tribune or Motor City Madmouth, go to southfloridatribune.com, go to our store, and purchase away. Happy Father's Day to all the dads. Scott, back to you.
Thank you.
And speaking of dads, my father is prominently in that book as well. So he was great to have a guy that was so involved with a lot of my youth activities as well. So yeah, happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there, including my brother-in-law, Todd Shepik, and my brother, Lonnie Morgan. So yeah, I don't know any other fathers. Well, happy Father's Day to me. I got 2 cats, fucking boots. And I'll tell you what, I don't have to spend money on their college education. I don't have to take them over to these fancy steakhouses. They have some good old interesting feline delicacies. So whatever, it is what it is. So I'd love to bring Bucky on the show, but I don't think I can hold him that long because he'd find a way to get into anything on the planet. If I think I can do that, good luck. But meanwhile, I want to, on behalf of those individuals that were out there watching us, we appreciate you tuning in. And for those of you that want to comment, feel free to do so. At least I know our message is getting out there. So on behalf of Candy Ebling, George Eichhorn, and JB Ellis, my name is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Madmouth. Thank you for joining us on this edition of the Sports Exchange. And once again, Sideline Sports is a partner of ours, so feel free to check out their programming as well. Good night, everybody. We will see you next Wednesday night.
Happy Father's Day.